But most people come to church because somebody they trusted said, you want to go with me and see this? 90-some%. The rest is happenstance. For this church, the only one I'm aware of that came here, other than people asking him or whatever, well, I say that, outside of the flyers, whatever we sent, Steve Kell was gracious enough to let us use one of his billboards. We put a billboard up, and Steve Harris, Steve and Kelly, walked in and said, we came because we saw the billboard. To my knowledge, no one else ever did that. It's very hard to start a new church because nobody knows what it is. And it's even harder whenever I'm the minister, because we walk in and oh, there he goes. But thank God you guys overcame me. Appreciate it. Thanks for the perseverance. But the way it works is friends inviting friends. But here's the third thing. I need to pray. I need to be their friend. But the third thing is to be authentic. Be real. Because the old style thinking is, if I become a Christian, then all my ducks in a row, everything's exactly right in my life, everything's just so-so. And whenever I be authentic and say, no, you know what? I love Jesus Christ, but there are nights that if I could, I would kill my husband with a rolling pin. That's authentic. That just because I give my life to Christ doesn't mean everything is rainbow and sunshine and smiles. Life still happens. To be authentic about it. So, understanding that, then what are we as a church to do? What are the things that we as a group, what are the things that we as a congregation can do to make sure this works right? Turn your Bibles to Acts chapter 2. In your church Bible, it's page 757. Yeah, 757. Acts chapter 2, verse 42. Acts 2:42, page 757. If you want a verse to memorize, and you're looking for something to say, well, I need to put more verses to memory, and how do I do that? You want to learn Acts 2:42. This is the foundation of everything. This is the foundation of everything. We as a church, if we don't do these four things, we're failing. And if we do something else besides these four things, we're failing. This is a one-verse summary of what the first church did. 3,000 people came to Christ off of one sermon. After that, there are hundreds of thousands being added to Jesus Christ's kingdom every day from it. And in Acts 2:42, Luke tells us what that church was doing. He says they were devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Now, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. Back then, it was given in oral form because the apostles were alive. Today it's given in written form so you and I can hold it and have it so that God made sure it was sustained for us. We call it the Bible. So once again it comes back to understanding, realizing, knowing, recognizing the Bible. The more I understand about the Bible, the better off I'm going to be. I need to devote myself to the apostles' teaching, which we find in the Bible. To fellowship. Once again it comes back to the relationship. That's where they got together at the gumbo shop and had blackened chicken and or shrimp or fish or whatever, or 2 hot wings to handle, whatever, Mark. That's where they got together. Fellowship. Made fun of Randy. It was great. Devote themselves to the breaking of bread. This is a euphemism that is used sometimes for fellowship, sometimes to talk about the Lord's Supper. Well, since he's talking about fellowship in the exact same verse, this is almost universally accepted to mean that this is where they devoted themselves to the Lord's Supper, to what we just partook of in remembering the death of Jesus Christ. And they devoted themselves to prayer. Now, this verse is not in order of importance. They're all equally important. So you see there that the church that made it work devoted themselves to the biblical teachings, devoted themselves to the fellowship of one another, devoted themselves to always remembering the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and always devoted themselves to prayer. That's all we have to do. Church is not hard. Christianity is not supposed to be difficult. In fact, Jesus Christ gave his life so that it is so simple, anybody can do it on any level. It's very simple. And we as humans have made it so complicated and so contorted. It is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be simple. Even I can focus on the Bible, focus on serving one another, understand and recognize the importance of the Lord's Supper, and pray to God. Even I can do that. That's all you got to do. But the way that we bring people to Christ is we just be friends with people. That's all. That's all. In fact, I really appreciate it whenever you guys, and it's happened a couple of times, but whenever we're out and you introduce me to friends of yours, I don't know if you're ashamed of me or whatever, but you don't introduce me as your minister. So, well, this is my friend Jeff. Actually, I'm teasing. I really appreciate it. Because as soon as people know I'm a minister, everything begins to shift a little bit. And once they get liquored up, I start hearing confessions. I don't know you that well, buddy. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know. But it's about just building the honest relationship where you can just be friends. Folks, I'm involved with life coaching, and I'm involved in weekend seminars that help people work through emotional baggage. And the reason that is so important to me is because it helps me build relationships with folks, and then they find out I'm a minister. It's so often people, and I, you know what, people, there's probably a dozen different folks or families that I'm building relationships with where they're talking about or beginning to suggest or even working through coming to church. People with all kinds of addictions, people with all kinds of problems, people that are struggling with whatever else. And I'm proud of the opportunity I have as your minister to be out there doing stuff where I can build those relationships, because most ministers isolate themselves and put them in their little church cocoon and say, you guys go make disciples, you go tell them. I don't want to do that. I want to be out there too. But we as a church have to do this on purpose. We have to. Now, I know what you're thinking. You probably think, as I say that, you're probably thinking two things. Number one, am I really going to wear a collared shirt next week also? And the answer is probably so. But the second thing you're thinking is, okay, so here's the thing, Jeff. Are you telling me to become friends with somebody just so I can tell them about Christ? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because out of whatever else you talk to somebody about, their spiritual salvation is the number one thing. So whatever it takes. Different people are talking to me about starting Bible studies. And I want to tell you up front that I am thrilled with that. I am thrilled with that. But I want to say up front also two things. Number one, communicate what's going on, because the last thing we want are four different people trying to start four different things at the exact same time, overlapping with one another. We can just be, focused on one thing. But I'll say this publicly also. I've seen Bible studies. My style of leadership is, you guys want to do it? Go for it. Let me know how it turns out. How can I help you? The problem with that is that without being your daddy, I've seen Bible studies take on a life of their own to become a gripe fest to start tearing down a church. So I'll say this publicly. If I ever hear that, I reserve the right as your minister to shut it down. And I got no problem doing that, and if you do, sorry. Because a Bible study is not a get-together for people to talk about, I don't like going to church when the lights don't come on. I don't like going to church when the carpet isn't right. I don't like the shirts that Jeff wears. Grow up, shut up, focus on Christ. But the second thing we got to recognize is to just build relationships. Maybe sometimes that's just to build relationships, just to help the people. I thought it was interesting, Kate, not knowing what the sermon was going to be about, hands me a letter today, this morning, from the Women's Safe House that we help. Now these are people we'll never know. We give them $150 a month. They wrote, this is Sylvia Jackson, our shelter is full almost every night. That means 50 women and children. This year we will serve nearly 600 battered women and their children. She goes on and she writes she personally writes a note. She says, your generosity for us is extraordinary. Our children's program served 278 children in the year 2009.